Hi, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. So thank you for joining us. We will have our fireside chat now on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access at USAID. I would like to invite to the virtual stage Erin Brown. So Erin, are you there? We'll wait just a moment for her to join.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, the magic of technology.
That's right. Great. Well, the magic of technology also means that we have this great audience and participants from all around the world. Thank you to everyone who's introduced themselves and for joining us today. We are excited to kick off this event with a discussion with Erin Brown here, who is USAID's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Coordinator. So Erin, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. Well, I would love to start off with learning a little bit more about your DEIA strategy. As I understand it, it's not just about your workforce, but also about your mission, which you focus on what I think you call the 5 Ps. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what those are and what this means to you all at USAID.
Well, right. So at USAID, our DEIA program is focused on what we call the 5 Ps, which are people, policies, practices, programs, and partnerships. Makes it really simple to remember. But I mean, what this really means is integrating DEIA into everything that we do. So that's so DEIA in mission, as well as DEIA for our workforce and our program and our partnerships as well. So that is basically what that represents. And so we are led primarily from an internal workforce standpoint. We have our DEI strategic plan, and our DEI strategic plan is focused primarily on the workforce. Our workforce, for those that don't know, we have it's 11 different hiring mechanisms, so hiring categories, so that our civil service and foreign service, but we're the minority of the agency, whereas the majority of our agency consists of foreign service nationals, personal services contractors, as well as institutional support contractors. So that internal strategy had to be broad enough for us to be able to attend to the needs of all of our communities across their various identities, of course, based on race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability status, et cetera. And then we have an action plan that we are in the process of developing now that speaks to how are we going to advance DEIA across our programs and partnerships based upon an equity assessment that we recently completed and submitted to the Domestic Policy Council back in August, that spoke to where we examined, hey, where across our USAID program cycle, meaning how we establish strategy as well as design, implement, and evaluate our programs, what are the barriers to equity there that may be impeding inclusive development? What are the barriers to institutionalizing equity in our programs? And how do we minimize the barriers to equity for USAID partnership opportunities, specifically targeted towards underserved communities, those that have been traditionally disadvantaged based upon all of those socioeconomic factors, and as well as race, ethnicity, gender, et cetera, that I mentioned earlier. So the combination of those two will drive our DEIA program, as well as help us to comply with many of the executive orders that have been disseminated, published by the Biden-Harris administration, at least 10 or 11 executive directives that are geared towards how we advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility across our programs and our partnerships and in the American public overall, and how we do that through the federal government. So it's really exciting time to work in DEIA at USAID.
Yeah, and I love that you include the A in that, and access, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that often you don't see included as people think about this in their organizations. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you mentioned there's a new administration, you have a newer administrator. It's been, a year and a half, 2 years, getting closer to 2 years since the murder of George Floyd, that really opened up a lot of these conversations. And then particularly with our sector has really galvanized a movement around, decolonizing aid. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how those discussions are going within USAID and how your employees are getting involved as you evolve this strategy amidst this backdrop.
So that's very interesting. As we're talking about, of course, being involved in the conversations around decolonizing aid and really framing it as from a USAID context as rebalancing aid, maybe even democratizing aid, because we have had a focus on localization for some time now, but we're trying to enhance that focus on localization through the DEIA lens, recognizing that even as we are looking to expand local partnerships, that there are additional issues that may, just because we are working with local partners does not mean that we are doing so with the correct lens, especially as it relates to an ethnicity and any other marginalized communities that may exist within the local context. So trying to focus on that, as well as looking at how we integrate or institutionalize equity into our programming. That has been definitely a focus of the agency. And so what we're doing right now is looking at how do we institutionalize equity across all of our sector strategies, as well as what we did recently is launch guidance for the new partnership initiative, where we have specifically asked operating units to examine how they are advancing DEIA, not just in how they, not just within their acquisition and assistance strategies as far as engaging with local partners, but also examining exactly how do you advance DEIA in your country strategies, and what is that looking like from a programming perspective, and what are the opportunities for us to be more forward leaning, especially as we meet the mandates of the Biden-Harris administration. So it's beyond just a conversation right now. At this point, we are focused on, precisely how we institutionalize that. I'm looking at the draft of the climate strategy, for example, that we have right now, and DEIA is firmly interwoven into that strategy. And we look forward to doing that with many of the other strategies that we have. Looking at having an interim policy update on DEIA for the agency from a programming perspective, as well as, again, what I've talked about from a partnership perspective. So it really is about identifying every way that we can advance equity in all it is that we do, because it's not just enough to talk about it. We really have to be about it, and the only way that we'll do that is if we meaningfully integrate it into everything it is that we do. Yeah,
sounds like a lot of work has been done and to be done. So, today we're really talking about careers at USAID. And I know you all have been thinking about how to bring in a more diverse workforce and help foster and grow that workforce. Can you maybe give some examples of some things that you are doing or trying to help address that challenge of bringing in people and making USAID more reflective of the communities you serve?
Yeah. So, I think, and I thank you for making the point that it's not just about recruitment, it's about retention, because we can bring in everyone that we can bring in, but at the end of the day, if we don't retain the workforce, then the numbers will, the composition of the workforce will pretty much stay the same. And so it really is our effort to not only increase the pipeline, but also to what are the developmental opportunities? How do we reward and recognize? How do we empower staff in order to ensure that we not just recruit, but retain? And so here are a couple of things. So one, we do have the Payne Fellowship program, and we will expand the number of over the years, expand the number of Payne Fellows. Right now, we have 15 Payne Fellows, and looking to expand that to 30. And so, Payne Fellows, of course, is our program that is where we are basically think of it as the similar to Wrangell and Pickering, where we are paying for college education for those degrees that are relevant to development, and once graduate, becoming foreign service officers. So looking to expand our foreign service through the Payne Fellowship program. We are examining our policies and practices across the entire employment life cycle. So we're literally looking at, for us, it's the 400 series of our automated directive system. That's the agency's operational policy. And that 400 series is all things human capital. And so we're looking at that entire 400 series and looking at across the entire employment life cycle to include recruiting, hiring, promotions, professional development, compensation/pay equity, to ensure that, and looking at it through an equity lens, so that we can eliminate any practices that may represent barriers to equity at the agency. We've expanded our DEIA training platform, which is our training platform is called RISE. That's Respectful, Inclusive, Safe Environment, and that really is what we're trying to achieve at the agency. We're trying to achieve a more respectful, inclusive, safe environment with a workforce that is representative of the American public. So this DEIA training platform, or RISE, includes topics such as anti-racism, in addition to topics on unconscious bias, microaggressions, inclusive development in programming, et cetera, as well as having established a recent in targeting how do we raise awareness and skill building for DEIA with our leadership, around our leadership cadre. We actually established a new training program called Inclusive Leadership. It's a 7-month training program that senior leaders, we're in the pilot phase right now, but senior leaders have volunteered to participate in this pilot program as a commitment to advancing DEIA at the agency. And so I'm really looking forward to where that will go. We've established the Minority Serving Institutions Partnership Initiative to assist with expanding our recruiting pipeline of diverse, qualified talent, but also to expand partnership opportunities. In fact, just last week, we had a signing between the agency. The administrator signed a memorandum of understanding with Delaware State University, which is a historically Black college and university, in order to, as part of this MSI partnership initiative. And we have at least 6 that are in a memorandum of understanding that are in different stages of development. And we look forward to expanding that program to not just be between Washington bureaus and independent offices and minority serving institutions, but also between missions and minority serving institutions. And so when I say minority serving institutions, I'm meaning historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, as well as tribal colleges and universities. We're expanding the number of paid internships. So going into fiscal year 22, we're looking to double the number of paid internships that we offer at the agency. And then, of course, from a development perspective, and trying to work on ways to elevate those those that are from underrepresented groups into senior leadership opportunities. We participate in a program called the International Career Advancement Program. In fact, I'm an ICAP fellow myself, where where that program assists with developing diverse leadership cadre across foreign affairs agencies and organizations writ large. And so also increasing our commitment to centrally fund participation in this ICAP program. So that's just a sample of what we're doing. At the end of the day, we're looking intensely at in conducting a barrier analysis as to how what are the barriers to hiring, promotions, and retention and developing action plans in order to meaningfully address those, because we are committed to doing the work.
Great. Yeah. Well, for a sample, that sounds like a lot that you have going on. And you mentioned the Payne Fellowship as one of those initiatives. And so actually we are going to go ahead and move on over to our next session, which we will learn a little bit more about that Payne Fellowship for those who are not yet familiar with it. But in the meantime, thank you, Erin, for taking some time to share with us today all that you and USAID have been up to on this front. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the next session here in just a minute.
Happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Thanks.
Bye.